Welcome to the Sensitive Mind Show.
Your purpose in life as a sensitive is to experience the deeper parts of the mind, to move beyond fear and to manage your energy, no matter the circumstance. I'm going to show you, as a sensitive, how you can maximize your talents and feel comfortable in your own skin. For show notes and to join the conversation, visit HeidiSawyer.com/mind. Hello there, welcome to the Sensitive Mind Show. So the key thing is I believe in fairness. Now, because the way the world is structured, good and kind people often have to fight harder for fairness. I give good and kind people the tools and the perspective to help them achieve fairness in their lives. Now, the key thing is to stop wishing things were different and start to create that difference. If you're like me and you believe in fairness, you are not wrong. You are not broken. You are an intuitive, sensitive person. So, if you haven't already, read this book, Highly Intuitive People. You might find that it changes your life. Visit HeidiSawyer.com/book. My name is Heidi Sawyer. I have 3 dilemmas for you today. 3. So our first one is Sandy, who is a life code 211. And the issue is, the dilemma to answer is her goddaughter safe with her addicted parents? Lynn is dilemma 2, who is a life code 8. And Lynn is worried about the impact of divorce on her adult child. And dilemma number 3 is Sustad, who is life code 5. And her question is, does she go into a business venture with her friend? Now, they are 3 really interesting dilemmas. They are things that may relate to your life, may have been a subject that's gone on in your life, or you may know someone who's going through such a situation and who may well find this particular perspective helpful. So let's go in to dilemma number 1, which is Sandy. Okay, so the situation is concern for goddaughter's health and safety, mental and emotional stability, and of those around her. Her mother, a sister and a partner are due to sustained and continued drug and alcohol abuse. Trying to get her into rehab. How is best to support them all? I assume that means the mother into rehab rather than necessarily the goddaughter. Okay, so what's the problem the situation creates? Anger, aggression, emotional pain with primary relationships, self-harm, loss of job, and potentially home due to strained relationship. Okay, so what is the question that Sandy wants me to answer? Trying to find my right role within the family, not to rescue, but to support and respect each of them, but not sure how. Well, that's really quite a hefty dilemma for Sandy to have to go through. So the situation is about trying to help, so trying to be of help in really quite a desperate situation, but without interfering. As many of us know, as intuitive sensitives, that's really tricky because we feel things from an empathic point of view, very much from an empathic point of view. So we're trying to help, but at the same time, some people find that tricky to accept, especially when there is addiction happening. So very tricky situation for Sandy because she's having to look at something, feeling that pain of looking at something, but at the same time trying to be helpful, but without interfering, because interfering creates rejection, which then really isn't going to be helpful to a good goddaughter, because she feels that a goddaughter's got to have somebody around who has a certain level of stability. So very understandable. Now, the complication is, of course, that Sandy looks at this as far as her goddaughter is concerned and sees that the complication is addict parents to a young person. So the big question is, how do you support this situation without rescuing? How do you do it? So we have Sandy. So Sandy is a life code 2. So I've got my little pictures here, and we're going to put Sandy here as a life code 2. Now she's a life code 2. Now this says here, as far as that life code is concerned, that it's a male. Well, it's the male energy. Doesn't mean it's a male person. Okay, we've also got here, if I put it that side, you can see the symbol of this is a guru. So life code 2s do tend to be people who are more intuitive than the average person and can see things from a wider perspective. They tend to be able to see different ways of seeing things, different ways of looking at things, just as a natural thing without having to really think about it. So Sandy here is going to be feeling the pressure of that, because that is, as an intuitive sensitive, really quite a pressured position, being able to feel all these different dynamics. So we've got Bo, who is a life code 4, and I've picked this particular figure, which is the goddaughter's mother. Okay, now I've picked this kind of figure here as someone who's young and hasn't really grown up, because I suspect that that's the relationship, or certainly how everyone kind of feels that Bo's behaviour or how she operates is. So that's why I've picked this particular person. Now, interestingly, her life code is about love. Now, quite often, people find themselves in my experience, I'm not saying that this is across the board, but certainly in my experience, and I can only really offer that as an opinion from my experience, is that people who find themselves in positions of addiction have a relationship with love, trying to look at how to feel loved, or to feel better, or to feel worthy. So it's all really quite centered often around love, which is how, in many situations, not all, they find themselves in a position of addiction. So that's, not really surprising that Bo's life code is a 4, or it's become a challenge. So the goddaughter, we actually have the name Oscar for the goddaughter, even though she's female. Okay, so I'm going to put her there. And I've picked this particular character because it's a young, sort of a young feel trying to get on in life. When, looking at daughters of, sons of, it's always that energy of how do they move forward? How do they get on in life? How do they progress? How do they do something when they feel that something is operating in their life that feels a little bit of a handicap? So also a life code 4, very interesting. So both of them is instantly we can see that this is a relationship to do about love. So everything around here, everything is going to be from the position of love. We're also looking at Sandy is a life code 2, is the energy that's down this line, the same line as these two characters, so Bo and Oscar, which is, again, it's that kind of shaped by love. And it's interesting that we can see that Sandy's position is kind of over, is a perspective that's over these two characters, so she can see from a wider view, even though at any one time these two can't see. Okay, so what Sandy will find herself doing is trying to restrain herself from pointing out the obvious. And the obvious, which is to perhaps everybody else or to other people, but to these two, feeling really quite oblivious. So the dynamic, instantly we can see, is everything to do with love. So the big question is, how do you find the right role, and without rescuing, and trying to offer support and respect for these people involved, but without trying to interfere by saving them. So let's have a look. So let's have a look at Sandy's view within this, how she can have a look at helping these two without feeling that she's interfering. Okay, so I'm using the archetypes. I have these upside down, so I'm going to give them a little shuffle around so I'm not choosing them. The archetypes are a very helpful way of having a look at something and looking at a situation, because they the archetypes, what are they? It's Jungian psychology. The archetypes, that's where this particular viewpoint comes from. They are the hidden dynamics, the hidden characters beyond our everyday world. Okay, so beyond us and our everyday world, what we're consciously aware of, these are the things that kind of go on in the background. So by using these archetypes, it's helping to draw that forward to have a look at some of those things that are going on in our own background, especially at the moment, because we're in a 9 year, which is all about the subconscious, all about those things that are tucked away, hidden at the back, coming forward, that perhaps we've ignored for years, and found this year that we've had to address them, had to solve them. So let's have a look. So first of all, I'm looking at Sandy. Now I'm picking an archetype with Sandy in mind. Let's have a look and see what we get. Okay. So interestingly, we get the Queen as far as Sandy is concerned. What does that mean? Well, it means that in actual fact, she has more influence than she thinks she does. Okay, so Sandy actually really does have quite a lot of influence over these two characters. So in a way, they are actually asking for help. They are asking for help, but not outwardly. So they do listen, and they do listen to what Sandy has to say, even though it may not be immediately obvious. So I would say that they already know, these two characters, that she has their best interests in her mind and is trying to be very respectful. So they do listen, even if it's not immediately obvious, Sandy, okay? So let's have a look at Beau. So let's have a look and see what's going on for Beau. So again, I've got the archetypes here with Beau in mind. Let's see what we've got. Right, interesting. So we've got God here. Okay, so that operates in two ways as far as Beau is concerned, and this situation, and also the situation around love. So Beau thinks that she can do whatever she likes because everything is in the lap of the gods. So she feels that there isn't any consequence. There's no real consequence for certain actions. It's all something that's already decided. It's all part of life. It's all in the lap of the gods. So she doesn't actually feel an awful lot of immediate responsibility, which Sandy will feel is really quite frustrating. And I suspect that Beau throws this at her at any given opportunity, any possibility of being able to, she will throw that. Now that is a very strong defense mechanism. So she's using that as a very strong defense mechanism, and it will feel at times for Sandy as though that's really hard to penetrate. Okay, so let's have a look at Oscar, who's the one who's really being impacted. Okay, right. So very ill-equipped, doesn't feel very equipped for life, doesn't feel very equipped at all. She's a student, so showing us that. So trying to learn and trying to find her way. So yes, Sandy has an influence over Oscar, but she doesn't have an influence over Beau. Beau will be awkward, difficult, wants to follow her own path, but she does have the ability to help Oscar, because Oscar is showing as a student of life, student of things, so hasn't developed a way of just following what Beau is doing or choosing to do in life. So Sandy does have an influence. So with this pattern in mind, let's have a look at the connector between Sandy and Oscar. So what is the thing that Sandy can really have a look at in terms of her own connection, particularly with Oscar? What is the thing to be aware of? So I'm thinking of that, having that in my mind, and let's have a look and see what we get. Okay, so interesting, which is a variant of this one here. We've got the goddess. Okay, so in order not to antagonize Bo and her attraction, very strong attraction towards addiction, etc., addictive relationships, addictive substance, all of that, is to treat Oscar with this goddess energy. So put her in this position of saying, oh, isn't she great? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she lovely? Blah, blah, blah. Something that Bo will agree with. And if Sandy is able to then put her in her mind as first, in terms of being able to see Oscar growing up into somebody who feels loved and feels that she has choices in this world, that if she addresses her along those lines, so keeps that connection, even if Bo is difficult and awkward, she will be the one that really then helps Oscar move forward. So I would say that this is about helping her with elements of her self-esteem just through general support, kindness and kind words to this one person. Okay, so to Oscar, and then Bo will behave herself and won't act in quite such a difficult way. So it's about encouragement, and then Sandy will be fine as far as that relationship is concerned. So I'm going to clear the board. So we have a few words from our sponsor, me, whilst I clear the board. So bear with me for a few moments and we come back to dilemma number 2. If you like the archetypes and the life codes, then you're going to love receiving my 2 monthly free predictions. The first is a group reading up the conscious line using the archetypes as your guide for the month ahead as an intuitive sensitive person. And the second is a prediction specific to your own individual life code, your own life code number, and you can see examples of this and sign up to have these 2 free predictions sent to your inbox every month by visiting HeidiSawyer.com. If you like the archetypes and the life code. Okay, so now we have dilemma number 2. So dilemma number 2 is Lynn. Okay, so Lynn is a life code 8. So we're going to put Lynn here. And the situation is, okay, so in 2005, I experienced a near-death experience due to uncontrolled seizures. Husband was not able to deal with it, so he started an affair and left home. My daughter was then only 12 and was devastated. I attempted to reconcile twice for my daughter's sake before officially getting a legal separation in 2012. An unresolved business asset is preventing getting officially divorced. My daughter always felt closer to her father than me and expressed conflict of how to still love both of us without feeling disloyal. So what's the problem that the situation creates? Well, my daughter is now 23, graduated from college, and feels she has only made wrong choices in every aspect of her life. Her low self-esteem has resulted in panic and anxiety attacks, teeth grinding, and most recently fear of driving and even being a passenger in a car. She lives with her boyfriend and 4 other roommates and feels unliked, unappreciated by all but her boyfriend. So the question is, I love my daughter and I'm trying to help her but don't know how. Does it have anything to do with unresolved issues with parents? Okay, so Lynn is a life code 8. So the situation is her daughter has low self-esteem issues, adult child with low self-esteem issues. Now the complication is that the daughter is Sarah, who is a life code 7, feels that she should choose between her two parents. Okay, so the questions are the daughter's issues anything to do with her parents? So Mitchell is the father, okay, and the estranged husband. So he is a life code 110, and I'm going to put him here. So I've chosen Sarah as this kind of teenage look because Sarah, in my mind, is stuck at within her teenage years, which is why she's getting into this position in the first place. And Mitchell, I've put this young person because his behaviour over the years has been really quite immature. Okay, so as both from the explanation of the situation, the seizures, not being able to cope, so he has an emotional immaturity himself, and then also the following years of trying to sort things and solve things, which it feels to me that Lynn has felt as though she is the one that's responsible for solving all of this. So we have Lynn as a life code 8. Now 8s are practical. They like to do things properly, very much about doing things properly and being focused as far as that's concerned. They also like to control situations. So for Lynn, this seizure must have been absolutely awful and completely devastating because it's way outside of what would suit a life code 8. Find it, and everybody else. So Mitchell would have completely thrown him because she would have been almost like the parent to him a little bit during their marriage. So to have that situation where he was then meant to be the person who was helping and caring for her, him being put into that position, he would have freaked out at, not being able to cope with, because 8s are very, very good at taking those roles of being in control and solving issues and solving problems. So Lynn at that time wasn't in that position, and instead of stepping up, Mitchell clearly stepped out. Now, as a life code 7, Sarah is a life code 7, very much reliant on her feelings. Everything to do within her inner world will be highly emotional. Clearly she's in a very anxiety-driven state. And Mitchell, as the 110, I've put him down here as the 110 rather than up here as the whole self, because he's very much in his physical world. So everything is driven by his dynamic as his physical world. So I suspect he went and had an affair because he had to go and feel manly about his situation, because he couldn't look at it emotionally. So he had to make it go away by getting himself involved elsewhere. So what we have here is it's too clear for me to ignore it, which is we have a drama. So we have what's called the drama triangle within the tree of life. So if you want to look at that, the Karpman drama triangle. So in this dynamic within the tree, we have normally the victim is in this position, so the 110 position. So the person who would see themselves as the victim. So clearly, Mitchell in this scenario fits perfectly as far as that's concerned. So we're going to put him here as feeling the victim. Okay. So Lynn is being projected onto as far as being the persecutor is concerned. So definitely both angles, she is feeling persecuted by both her daughter and her ex-husband, because it's this sort of it's your fault energy being thrown at her in one way or another, which is how it's being shown as far as Sarah is concerned. And Sarah is normally, this position is the rescuer, but in actual fact Sarah is waiting to be rescued. She's waiting to be rescued by somebody all the time, rescued, and yet no one can rescue her. Okay, so everything is about I want to be rescued, but no one can get anywhere near her to be able to solve that, to reconcile that as far as that's concerned. And she's stuck in this child energy, child vibration, even though she's 23. So what's Lynn got going on? Well, what I can feel really quite strongly is it's about Lynn letting go of this feeling that it's really tucked away in the background, in the 9, in the subconscious, really tucked away deep in there, that somehow or another she's at fault for having a seizure. So she actually thinks that if she hadn't had a seizure, then they wouldn't have this this situation. That's what she thinks deep down. I know she hasn't said it in the words here, but that's what I can feel very strongly, is that she seems to think that this may not be consciously, but unconsciously is all her fault. Because if she hadn't had that seizure, things would all be right, all be fine, and Sarah would be fine. Okay, so what I can feel really strongly is Lynn is everything about responsibility, and these two, both Sarah and Mitchell, are everything about no responsibility. Okay, so both of them are in that dynamic. So let's have a look and see how Lynn can be released from her unconscious, tucked away belief that somehow or another because she was ill, that she was responsible. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so interesting. We have the Virgin. So what this is about is Lynn wiping the slate clean as far as her own self-blame is concerned about having this seizure back in 2005. Okay, so Lynn would do very well to let herself release from that internal pressure. How does she do that? Well, she explores what's tucked away in the subconscious about feeling that somehow or another she was inadequate for having this seizure. Okay, and let's see what Sarah needs to do in order to grow up, so that she stops projecting this all this fear and anxiety onto everybody else, rather than saying, actually, I'm now responsible for my own life. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so Sarah would do well to get to the bottom of her actual fears. So rather than entertain the fears, is to actually get to the bottom of them. So to be her own detective as far as that's concerned, to look herself to be able to resolve this, rather than looking to her mother to fix it for her. Now let's have a look as far as Mitchell is concerned. Let's have a look and see what his part is within this. Okay. Okay, so he's got the networker, which is interesting. So he does a lot of good chat, good old talk, but doesn't do anything as much follow through is concerned. So I'm sure Lynn is very aware of that. And as far as Sarah is concerned, there's a lot of chat about being great and all this, but there's no follow through. And so Lynn, in letting go of her own internal blame for having this seizure in 2005, will be able to then let go of the fact that she feels responsible for somehow her daughter being in this position. And actual fact is for her daughter to get to the bottom of her own issues by actually listening to what her father is actually saying and where the actual substance is behind things, because quite often there is not an awful lot of substance there. And he is a networker in terms of he was never about commitment. Okay, he was never about sticking to things when the going got tough, because he has never grown up himself and doesn't really want to. Okay, so Lynn would do herself a tremendous favour by releasing this for herself, and then Sarah will then stop looking to her to fix all her problems or to blame her for all her issues and problems. What then happens is Lynn removes herself from this 3-part drama, so she can no longer be directed as to the persecutor, that somehow or another it's all her fault. And then the actual relationship issues between Sarah and her father are things that they have to address and sort out themselves, so that Sarah can see where she's coming from, rather than thinking that as a mother is always to blame. So whilst I clear the board, here's another word from our sponsor, me. So watch this for a few moments whilst I clear the board. Like live events like this, then you are going to love joining me every month for my monthly live free masterclass, where we dive deep into a single topic, such as creating a strong mind and body balance, or how to give accurate readings, or things like overcoming codependence and how to master the self. Those are just about a few of the masterclasses that I do each month. If you want to be notified when these become available, then be sure to register your email at heidisawyer.com/mind, and I will send you an invitation each month to one of these free masterclass sessions. Okay, so we are now moving on to dilemma number 3. So this dilemma is Sue Stud, who is a life code 5. And the question is, so what's the situation? I would like to retire from my present office job. My friend would like me to run a spa that she is opening here. I could practice my modalities. I'm unsure that this is a good move, as she's looking to me to help finance, and my finances aren't in great shape. Terribly undecided, scared, can't be without income. What do I do? So what's the problem the situation creates? She doesn't think things through. Okay, so this is the possible business partner. Doesn't think things through, does things before she should, as in she's bought 20,000, I think that's pounds worth, float pods before she's had the building to put them in. I don't want to lose the friendship, but not sure I can count on her, lacking security. So the question is, should I be pursuing this venture? So Sue Stud is a life code 5, and I put her there. And so she's asking me the question. Okay, and then we have Core, okay, who is a life code 7. Okay, so I'm going to put it there. Now we have a third person involved here, which is really quite interesting, and I'm going to put that person as even though it's a man, I'm going to put him as this person with tape over the mouth. Okay, so Sue Stud is asking, as a life code 5, should I go into this venture? So what she's got here as a life code 5, so as a life code 5, thinking about, should I, shan't I? This is overridden by the will. So the will says, yes, I really want to do this. I think I should. I think I'm just being flaky. I'm being scared. I'm not really going for it when I should do it. And, this is all about the will. It's about the warrior. It's about fighting the need to pull back and pushing forward as a life code 5. So she's really up against her own life code as far as this is concerned. Now we have Core as a life code 7, ruled completely in this situation by her feelings, wants to open this spa, wants to do it, can't wait, gone and spent £20,000 on float pods before she's even got premises. That's how she really, really wants to do it. Now, Dougie, I've put in here as is a life code 211, but I've actually put him as this woman with the tape over her mouth, is because he feels that he wants to be able to say something, but he's trying to keep out of it. Okay, so Sue Stud has put Dougie on here as a kind of almost a third thought. as far as this is concerned. So this is really quite interesting because he is, she says, husband, but I really do feel strongly that he's trying to keep out of it. He's trying to allow her to make her own decision, even though he's got a view on this, which is really quite interesting. So the question is, should she go in? Complication is things don't add up as far as core is concerned. So is she doing the right thing? Should she, shouldn't she pursue it? Okay, so let's have a look as to what's going on as far as core is concerned. Okay. So core is the person who she'll be going into business with. So I'm thinking of core at the moment. Let's have a look. Oh, ooh. I think we've got a clear answer straight away. Okay, so we have the saboteur come up as far as core is concerned. Really interesting. Okay, so let's have a look as far as Sustad is concerned. So should she, shouldn't she, what's her real fear? So I'm thinking about that before, as I choose, I've got them upside down. So let's have a look. Okay, interesting. We've got this one back again. Considering the size of this pile of cards, it's really quite incredible that we've got this back again. I'll show you the pile of cards. I've got the Queen back. So we've got the Queen in Sustad's position. We've got the saboteur around core. Let's have a look and see what Dougie thinks of all of this. Okay, so let's have a look. Thinking of Dougie, what does he think of all this? He thinks that Sustad should seek more knowledge because he's got the seeker here. He thinks that she should have a look and seek more knowledge, seek more depth as far as this is concerned. So I think he's very right because what he doesn't want to do, he doesn't want to destroy Sustad's dream. It feels to me that he's very supportive of this. He doesn't want to destroy her dream of what she wants to create, but he feels really quite strongly that core is not the right person to be getting involved with. I think he thinks that this is quite stressful scenario for Sustad to actually involve herself with. Now, core, what's she up to? What it feels like to me, over and above what we've got quite clearly here is the saboteur, is that everything is run as far as her feelings are concerned within a very short period of time. Core will not only run out of money, but she'll run out of being able to set it up correctly and with a business mind focus, because she's completely ruled at this particular situation completely and utterly by the 7, which is her feelings around these situations. Now, 5s and 7s anyway, I would not be putting them together in many situations because 7s can be very disruptive around 5s. Okay, the 5s can trigger off the 7's really strong emotional kind of things going on, and 7s can frustrate the hell out of a life code 5 because it's all about, they would see them as being impulsive. Okay, so a 5 would see that a 7 is impulsive. They would think that it's impulsive, and 5s actually do better by taking their time over things, which is clearly how Sustad is looking at the situation, which is she's taken her time to decide whether she should really be involved with this person in terms of this business venture. So she's actually adhering to her own life code, which is pausing before action, whereas 7s just pile on in there as the action side of things, which is taking action. Now, core is taking action long before she has even properly thought this through, and this is where the saboteur is coming up. So I'm just going to pick one more just to have a little look a little further. Okay, interesting. We've got this God back again, quite incredible considering, as I say, the pile of archetypes that we could possibly have this from. Did I put them back in the same? No, I mixed it all up, put them in. I have no idea where I put these back in, and yet we've got this up again. Interesting. It quite often happens because vibrations all occur at similar time, similar space energetically. So, as an example, these 3 dilemmas that we've had as far as this particular session is that the energy somehow or another will be similar. So core, and interesting, I've picked the same character. Core will have something that's similar characteristically to Bo, even though Bo was a life code 4. So there's a similar dynamic kind of going on. Disruption, disruptive, impulsive. So it's impulsive. It's very, so Core will see herself as she can be the decider of this, won't listen to anybody else, will charge ahead wanting to do that, with little to no experience as far as that's concerned, but wants to do it. So she'll charge at it, burn it out, burn all her money out, and if Sustad gets involved, she will also end up with that massive pile of debt too. So my very clear advice as far as this is concerned, and rather than I'm going to give a very categoric view on this, which I don't normally do, I only do this when it feels to me very, very clear, is to stay well clear not to do it with this particular person. Okay, it doesn't mean that Sustad then disrupts her own dreams, because most definitely she's got a very supportive partner and husband, but not in this particular situation. And he's very right, even though he's trying to keep out of it, is that she needs to seek something deeper, and as this figure is showing, go off into the sunset in the opposite direction, to save all of their sanity. Now, I hope you've very much enjoyed these sessions. So that's the end of this episode of the Sensitive Mind Show. If you've enjoyed it and found it helpful, do share it. Do share that this session goes out every week. Do share it with your friends, and be sure to join me next week, where I look forward to giving you an alternative perspective on your dilemmas. Bye, and let me leave you with this. For more great free content designed to support your purchase of my book, Highly Intuitive People, 7 Right Brain Traits to Change the Lives of Intuitive Sensitive People, please visit finallyfeelunderstood.com. There you can subscribe and download for free the meditation specific to today's episode. If you have already read the book, then it's time for you to receive exclusive access and support from me and your fellow intuitive sensitives as we go deeper together along this proven 7-step path by joining us in my monthly membership program called Heidi's Circle. There you can ask me anything in a safe and private environment, and I will answer you live. Join us today by visiting healmyinnerworld.com.